Investigations are underway after a man died in floodwaters south of Brisbane. Police found the 71-year-old's body near a submerged vehicle early this morning at Greenbank. Rescuers in Taiwan say dozens of people are trapped alive inside road tunnels after a massive earthquake struck the east coast yesterday. Kieran Loveridge, who has spent more than a decade in jail over the death of teenager Thomas Kelly in Sydney, has been granted bail. And Canberra United star midfielder Vesna Milivojevic is off to Sweden after 2 seasons with Canberra's A-League women's club. We'll get more in sport with Daniel Garb a little later. Women's health practitioners are calling for an urgent gender review of Medicare benefits, which they say is rife with gender bias. Gynecologists, obstetricians and midwives say government rebates can sometimes be larger for much simpler male procedures, leaving women with comparatively bigger gaps to pay. They've urged the Health Minister Mark Butler to establish a gender-focused review of the Medicare benefit schedule. Dr Nisha Kott is the Vice President of the Royal Australian and New Zealand College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. She says it's not just a couple of procedures that are the issue.
We're definitely looking at tens of procedures where there is this discrepancy, right from the actual appointments to see a specialist down to the investigations that are done and then the surgeries that follow.
Can you remind us again how the Medicare rebates actually work? Say you've got the figures that the government sets for a procedure, and then you've got the figure that a health practitioner then charges, and what that determines the gap that a patient pays?
That is correct. So the government sets the rebate as they see appropriate, and then the practitioner themselves have to look at their own practice and, as private practitioners would be paying for their staff and premises and things like that, so they have to then make sure that they cover their costs, and that's how the out-of-pocket expense works, which is then borne by the patient.
And then, so can you give me an example of some of these out-of-pocket costs and what you're saying the issue is here? What kind of procedures are we specifically looking at?
So I can start with something very simple like an ultrasound. So if we look at someone who's pregnant, they would have an ultrasound. They would have multiple ultrasounds, but one of the key ultrasounds is one that happens at around 20 weeks and looks at baby's development, looks at each and every organ within the baby and makes sure that it is developing as it should be. The rebate for that ultrasound scan, which is done at around that 20-week mark, sits at somewhere around $91. Whereas if you compare it with, for example, a scrotal ultrasound, an ultrasound that is looking at the scrotum and the one organ that sits in the scrotum, the Medicare rebate for that ultrasound sits at around somewhere between $100 to $115 or so. And you can immediately tell the difference that here is one single organ being subjected to an ultrasound, but is being paid more, whereas you're doing an ultrasound for a baby, looking at all of the baby's organs inside of a mother's belly. So you can imagine that that's a more complicated ultrasound, but it pays less. So that sort of discrepancy immediately stands out, and the out-of-pocket cost for such an ultrasound would be anywhere in the region of somewhere between $50 to $150, which women have to pay themselves.
Is it not fair that a more complex procedure would just cost someone more?
It is fair that a more complex procedure should cost someone more. As in, it takes more time, so it should be valued as such.
But you prefer the person paying more to be the government rather than the patient?
Absolutely. I mean, the government is paying for the scrotal ultrasound as well, and we are not saying that there should be less money being paid for the healthcare that men get. All we are saying is that the healthcare women get should also be paid proportionately and take into account the complexity of the healthcare that is being given and be paid accordingly.
Can I ask you, you may not know the answer to this, but how has it come to this? What possibly could have been the rationale for setting these different rebates in the first place?
I think it is a combination of a few things. These rebates were set at a time when we didn't have as much advances in the procedures that we do. So the ultrasound, for example, wasn't as advanced as it is today. And so perhaps the Medicare rebate was set at a level where the ultrasound wasn't being done with so much thoroughness. Now, medicine has changed completely in the years since these Medicare rebates were set. And so it's time to look at those Medicare rebates from today's modern medicine point of view.
Is there any evidence women are actually deterred by the cost of these procedures? Is there an actual impact to this, or is this a call in the name of fairness?
Well, it is definitely impacting women. Again, I'll go back to that ultrasound that I spoke about, and some women just can't afford to pay the out-of-pocket expenses for an ultrasound, which is very crucial to their pregnancy. And if they don't have that ultrasound, it means that we don't pick up any abnormalities in the developing baby, which then means that we can't manage those complications in a timely manner. And this I see on a regular basis in my practice, where women will say, look, I just can't afford to have this scan. Can we not do it at all, or can I have it a little bit later when I've managed to gather some money so that I can go and have this scan? Which, again, is not the right thing to have it later. The whole point is to detect problems as early as possible so that we can manage them as early as possible.
How is this posing challenges to health practitioners themselves?
For health practitioners, like I said again, we want to make a diagnosis as early as possible so that we can then manage the condition as early as possible. Thinking about non-pregnant women, women who come to see us with chronic pain, they come not just with pain, they come with a whole range of symptoms. And when they have a whole range of symptoms and there isn't the ability to give them the time that we should be giving them to be able to manage all of these complications, it means that we then are not providing good care. And, nobody does medicine to provide bad care. We all go into medicine so that we can provide the care that our patients need. We want to provide the time for them so that we can listen to all of their issues. We can make sure that we put them in touch with the relevant specialists so that they can get the care they need. And that just doesn't happen within a 10 or 15-minute appointment. It needs a long appointment. And within gynecology, we haven't got the ability to be able to have those long appointments specifically for patients who need them, like women who have chronic pelvic pain.
So you're calling for an urgent review of the Medicare benefits schedule. Why do you think this is an overall kind of big deal that needs to be tackled right now?
It is definitely a cost of living thing, because we know that women always put their health last. And when there is a cost of living crisis, women are going to put their health even further down the list of things that they would be spending money on. And so for someone living with chronic pelvic pain, they are not going to go and have that ultrasound that costs them so much more when they can't afford to put food on their table. And if we increase the rebate and we look at those rebates properly so that women don't have to pay as much money, then they will go and get the care that they need.
That's the Vice President of the Royal Australian and New Zealand College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, Dr. Nisha Kott, speaking with ABC News Radio's Dale Drinkwater. Time now to check in on the latest sports news. It's hello to Daniel Garb.
Hello to you, Laura. Nice to see you on the afternoon. Building up to Gather Round in Adelaide. This weekend it all starts tonight, and Melbourne are confident they can continue their good run at the Adelaide Oval when they come up against the Crows team desperate for a win in the opening match of the unique format. The Demons stayed in the city after beating Port Adelaide last week, with many players' families joining them in the lead-up to the game tonight. Every single AFL game this round will be played across South Australia. Demons star Alex Neil-Bullen says there's no reason why Melbourne can't extend the misery of the winless Adelaide Crows on their own turf this evening.
Every time we come to the Adelaide Oval, we know whether it's Port Adelaide or the Crows, it's a highly contested game, all the boundary compared to our home deck at the MCG, so it's a great challenge. We know that the Crows are going to bring their best. From our point of view, we're going to be on from the start, and it's just such an exciting opportunity for our footy club to kick off the other round.
Port Adelaide will welcome back key forward Mitch Georgiades for their game against fellow top 8 contender Essendon tomorrow night. The 22-year-old missed most of last season with a torn ACL, but he kicked 3 goals last week for the Port Magpies. Jason Horne-Francis will return too after suffering a hamstring strain in round 1. He replaces Ollie Wines, who suffered the same injury in the Powers loss to Melbourne last weekend. Port coach Ken Hinkley said the return of Georgiades is a boost for the team coming in together round.
Mitch Georgiades played first game back, which is a great story for us as a footy club after his ACL. So we're pretty excited to see Mitch get out there and play on tomorrow night.
In the NRL, the Brisbane Broncos are set to unleash the tallest player in the competition when they take on the Melbourne Storm in Melbourne tonight. 205 centimetre forward Ben Secura will make his debut off the bench. He comes in for Xavier Willison, who suffered a head knock at training on Monday. Broncos coach Kevin Walters says Secura will handle the stepper.
He's taller than most people, so that brings a bit of attention towards him, but he's a footballer, certainly. Been 2 years now, 3 years in our system, and I feel he's maturing enough now to ready to handle the NRL and what it provides. It's very exciting for him. Well, I'm excited to see him play.
Sydney Roosters coach Trent Robinson says it's unrealistic for the NRL to poach talent from American football. Scouting competitions were held in the US last month alongside the NRL's opening games in Las Vegas that led to the Roosters signing Rugby 7 star Liz Tafuna with the women's side, making her the first American in NRLW. But Robinson says he does not see NFL or college football players fitting into Australian Rugby League.
To learn a complete different game just because you're athletic, that's much harder. I do believe that's a bit of pie in the sky. I think other sports have tried that. I think there needs to be a background in rugby or rugby league there and tap into those two areas.
Sydney FC have moved up to fourth spot on the A-League men's ladder after a 1-1 draw away to Perth Glory last night. Joe Lolly scored for the Sky Blues in the 25th minute before the Glory equalised in the 72nd minute. Sydney FC go ahead of Macarthur on the ladder. Perth remains in 10th place. Glory coach Alan Zajic has told Paramount Plus that his team have plenty of chances to win.
We definitely had a few opportunities there to capitalise, and unfortunately the second half had still half chances there, and we just couldn't get that go-ahead goal.
And Marco Tilio and Darren Quoll are included in Australia's 23-man squad for the upcoming Under-23 Asian Cup in Qatar. The tournament doubles as a qualifier for the Olympics. The top three placed teams automatically qualify for Paris. Other A-League names selected include Jake Holman, Nicholas Milanovic and Ryan Teague. Australia's first match is against Jordan on April 15th. The big story out of that, though, no Nestori Irankunda, the brightest talent in the A-League at the moment and arguably in Australian football. Only 18 years of age, he's been left out by coach Tony Bidmar. The feeling is for his development at the moment, it's better that he stays with Adelaide and prepares to go to Bayern Munich in the off-season and start readying himself for his journey. I think feel as though he's ready for participation in that squad for the Olympic qualifiers, which is an interesting story. We'll wait to see if he ends up being selected if Australia does make it to Paris, which is a difficult ask.